Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, a question at the beginning. Who knows IEC? Who does not know IEC? Now to get everybody awake. Who's sleeping? Okay. Who has ever been worked with IEC? Okay, good. IEC is the International Electrotechnical Commission, and they are doing a very dry job. They are writing standards. And writing standards is, well, a very boring job on one side. On the other side, it's very interesting what comes out, and it's very, very helpful. That's the point. It is so important, the standard, in the globalized world and for the economy, because the companies only need to develop one in the perfect way, in a perfect world. Only need to develop one product, one software, one version of a product, and that then works everywhere in the world. And that makes it cheap and more reliable. So this is the idea of standardization, and that's why it is so useful. It is not very useful to have a different grid code and a different requirements for renewables in every country, because every time a manufacturer wants to build something there, wants to sell something there, they have to adapt the product, which makes it more expensive at the end for the customer. And with the lack of experience, it doesn't make it much more reliable, or maybe more or less reliable. So, and IEC is then an international standardization body. We have national standardization bodies. So we have in Europe the CENELEC. We have in the US IEEE. They're doing a lot of standards. So what we're trying at IEC there is finding a standard in this committee for large-scale renewables. That means I come to the scope a little bit later then. IEC SC8A stands for Subcommittee 8A. There's a technical committee, that's the parent committee of this one. Number 8 deals with system integration and system operation in electrical power systems. And Subcommittee S8 is Subcommittee 8A is the committee under this technical committee, under the parent committee. The A stands just for the first one. There's also by now an SC8B dealing about microgrids. The scope and perspective. SC8A was founded or created in 2014. It was a long discussion. Do we need it or do we not need it? It was driven by the Chinese colleagues who wanted this very badly, and then a lot of other committees, national committees, agreed to it. The IEC is organized in national committees. So we have the headquarters in Switzerland, and with some offices in the US, in North America, and in Asia, in Singapore. And everything is based on democratic decisions, mostly done by the national committees. And not every country is always participating in every task of IEC, so this is important to know. And then after it was created, this subcommittee, there was a lot of discussion with existing committees, TC88, which deals wind power, and TC82, which deals with PV. And so we had a harmonization meeting there with these TCs to see where is the overlap and where is the borderline between them. And it's more or less like TC88 and 82 covers everything in the solar plant, in the wind farm, till the point of common coupling, and SC8A is then from there on towards the grid. So is why it is the grid integration of renewable generation. Only the large-scale renewable generation, which means either large wind farms or large power PV plants, or a lot of small PV plants like we have in Germany, the situation where we have 20 gigawatts on rooftop PV, which is very small. But in the end, it has an influence on the system. So that's why it is also covered within the scope of SC8A. The perspective is, it comes from the questions how to deal with the variability of the generation, how to deal with converter-based systems, and there was a grid integration white paper published in 2012 from IEC, which says, tackling these challenges there. The main advantage I said already about IEC, it's about standardization, but there's also another very important point, and this is networking. In IEC, in the working groups, you meet a lot of experts from around the world with a lot of experience. So joining IEC and joining the working groups is not just helpful for developing the standards, but also helpful to gain knowledge and to increase your network. The scope is to prepare international standards for not everything you can put in the standard. It's also papers, best practice papers. IEC usually has 3 different type of documents. One is a technical report. Then that's kind of a weak. It's not binding, but it puts together what is needed, what is the state of the art. Then we have the technical specification, which is the first step for a standard. And then you have the international standards. Many of these international standards are taken over into national standards. So it is very important that there is not something written in the standard which is not very helpful for your own country or your own business. So as I said, SC8A focuses on high percentages of renewables. However, it comes with a large number of small systems or a few big systems. And it also covers the requirements for the interconnections and grid code compliance tests. That's where the idea. It's not about writing a global grid code. That's not the intention of SC8A. That's not possible. But writing guidelines towards a grid code, that's important. The latest activities, as I said, it was founded in 2014. By now we had a few meetings there. There is the secretary from China, Yongling Ji, and myself as the chairman of this committee. And we have P members, that's participating members, that member states that really worked in the sending people to the working groups. And we have observing members. They're just following the process and might send in somebody. You might find, or you might not find, you might see that there's one country missing on this list, on the P members as well as in the O members, and that's India. And that's kind of interesting because there's so much going on here, and there's so much, India is so much depending on standards even if it's just national, but it's so important to get the knowledge from all over the world and the standards. So that I like to encourage you to send people from academia, from research. P member is a participating member. That's the one we are really looking for, and the O members are observing members. We happy about everybody who is observing, but we are more looking for people who are really working in the working groups, come to the meetings and. Maybe, yeah, but yeah, sometimes. This is IEC setup, so this is very strict, and I cannot change this on this side. But anyway, the whole presentation today is actually to encourage experts from India to join. That might be from the industry or from universities, from researching institutes, and so on. There are currently 4 working groups. One is taking care about terms and definitions. That's really a standard that's developed there. That's just that people around the world know what they're talking about. If they for example, the term of installed capacity. At wind power, it's kind of clear. At PV, it is unclear. What is the installed capacity? Is it the rated power of the modules? Is it the rated power of the inverter, of the transformer, whatever? So these are little things that are very helpful to define worldwide in the same way. So that's why we said, well, we go for working group 1 with a standard. And there are already standards about terms and definitions. So this working group is working closely together with other working groups in the IEC world. And most of what we develop there is nothing new. It's not like IEC is a research body. And everything we write down is somewhere already, but somewhere sometimes in different ways written. So we bring together all the views, different views, and try to find one definition for this. And if we don't find one definition, we at least list different definitions. And you can say, well, you can refer to IEC definition, whatever, and then everybody knows what it is. Working group 2 is about power prediction. There is no way to, wind power or PV power prediction, there's no way to write a standard on this. So therefore, we're writing a technical report, a best practice report. That is also ongoing work now. But this is very important if you're in the forecasting business, as there are a lot of expert meetings. So that's also helpful to be in this working group and to see what the outcome is. Then joint working group 4. That's about grid code compliance. It's not about grid codes itself. It's just about how to certify compliance with grid codes. And then the ad hoc group 3. This is more or less the chairman's and secretaries group, just to make clear for the next years of what is SCADA actually doing. That's more like an administrative group. You're happy to join there. But this is not really the work in detail on the topics. It's more like the organization. So there are some key decisions, which is but too much details. But the last decision is very important. That is the next plenary meeting, and also in conjunction with working group meetings, takes place in Vladivostok, in Russia, in October this year. So whenever you like to join, approach your national committee, and then they can send people to the plenary meeting or to it's the general meeting of IEC. So this is taking place there. It's actually for 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks in October. But CSA and all these working groups meeting there in the first week from October 2nd till October 8th or something, yeah. October 7th. So I talked about the working groups. It's too much detail here now to explain everything. But if you're interested, you can also ask me at the break. I'm available here today and tomorrow. So the future work is also getting more into the requirements, the network codes. As I said, we don't want to write a network code, but when it comes to special functions that are described, it's very important to describe first what you're talking about. When you're talking about FRT, fault right through, you're talking about voltage measurements. What voltage do you measure? From phase to phase, from phase to ground. You take an average of the three phases. And all these things are all defined either differently in the world or not defined at all. And so such a little details are very important when it comes to develop the actually systems, yeah, and the products. And so it is important to have one definition and one standard that describes how to do this. It might be even different just ways how to do it. And if they are described in the standard, then you can say, well, I'm referring to IEC standard whatever, XY, and it's the definition 5B or 5C or 5D, and then it's clear what is there actually wanted. So that's more or less integration planning as well is something we like to tackle in the future. This work has not started yet. System operation, system operation, control and protection is very different from country to country. So we will not give any orders how to do this. It's just advices and best practice papers and also definitions how to do this or how to describe it. Well, and I think that's 2 minutes left. That's fine. So I'm done. But I'm happy open for questions. Happy to answer any questions either now or later today or tomorrow.